Well, hello there, everyone. You talk about for Pixar Cars 3. You talk about passwords right here, and if we seen talking about accounts though, but then yeah, if anybody will warrant toward that you did not mention too much about passwords, and I know a few other activities that I posted from earlier from last year talk about passwords, but you see right here is this Photoshop work right here. I went and worked right here. Talk about for Mater. And then this other Cars character, if they were to be wearing these headsets, and the way I went and painted this right here, if Mater were to be wearing any type of crown, if anybody say that, yeah, are you known to be king if you get something working, such as a password, and I can tell anybody here that yeah, that a lot of times if you're going to be managing an account that 4 stars, or if it's 5 stars, but see right there is for 4 stars right there. Have right here is the password. But if anybody will warrant to where yeah, you're going to be looking at an account like a body, and what I mean by body is to where like kind of like an office to where that that gives a person the ability to do a variety of things whenever they are a member of, we say, of an online group, if you want to call it like a the type of way of how you use services, like how you use online service. And I have right here, I drew some like these graphs right here. And if anybody will, these fraction graphs, I don't know if graphs, but I get fractions. If most of us can remember whenever we were in school, that especially in math class, about what grade were you whenever you first learned how to do decimal fractions, other sorts of fractions. And if we were to be doing this same activity, but then talking about passwords, and if anybody wants us toward how does that work? Well, I went and provided right here are some examples right here. You have right here is the keywords right here. So a lot of this can be done using a computer, a keyboard on a mobile phone, or on a PC or a Mac, that you'll be able to use these keywords right here. And like I say, yeah, that especially you're going to have the cap lock on it. You would have these keyword, these A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and so on. And you have right here are these other keywords right here. You have at, and then that number, and then comma, apostrophe, and then underscore. Those keywords right there. So let's just say if the situation were to come to where if you had to create a password just to sign into an account, like just to watch a movie like Cars 3, or maybe to watch any other Disney movie, Jack and the Beanstalk, or if it's The Little Mermaid, or any other source of a movie that if you're going to be signed into your account. And if anybody wants to, that with passwords though, that about most of them are good for about for at least 90 days, and sometimes within 48 hours. That if you're especially with the email address, that if you're going to have an account, that anybody likely think that yeah, if it's supposed to be like a family plan. And really, what does Lightly McQueen have to say about that so far as talk about the Piston Cup? Is to where teaching our kids about yeah, the whole purpose about having an account online, and we're not talking about just computer related devices. We talk about video games too, that have these security features, such as to where that anything related to passwords, if it's going to be like any source of access keys or anything like that, or if it's going to be anything such as passwords. And but talk about right here of if anybody warrants, is that yeah, that with this type of password right here, this right here would be example right here of a password. And yeah, I say yeah, that if you're going to have a pen and paper, and a lot of times if you're going to be making a phone call or something like that, and they ask you got pen and paper handy, it's like yeah, write down temporary password if it's supposed to be a temporary password. If they assigned you a permanent password, they say it's good for 90 days, but I tell you one thing, if anybody will warrant to her that besides making sure that your membership is up to date with your right to payment arrangements and all that stuff, and that making sure that that you keep the password safe and secure. And knowing about with these characters right here, these Cars characters, and knowing about with the body right here, that if anybody were to ask me, is this right here one of your passwords? I'm like, has this ever been used as a password for any source of access to an account? And I can recall, and if they, like anybody say, besides computer hackers, that is this something that maybe that they could easily figure out? And so you're like, Warren, to where that you don't even see something like this. And if anybody say that, with passwords though, can it be a lot of fun, just like solving a puzzles, just like as to where if you're trying to get a number of pieces of a puzzle just to come together, you're trying to fit the ends and then the edges all together just to be able to get them to come together, just to see about how it looks whenever it's all put together. But we talk about this secret message right here, and I included this right here, like if it was supposed to be like a password, to where it's like for go, and then the password looks like this right here, to where if it was in the blank. So if this right here is what it would look like, to where if we will be looking at like an instruction manual about how to reset a password, and then for how to for what the page, what the site looks like for if you want to reset the password. And you have right here's the body, and then the office desk. So this email address could be about right here, and then you have right here's the password. They may ask you what your previous password was, and ask you about maybe a security question, secret message, and then you have right here's this is a spot right here for where the password could go, or that just like a secret message about these characters. But if anybody wants to, if you're going to be buying a coloring book, that why is it that we don't see too much of this? Because I know the coloring books nowadays, maybe if they're going to be released to a lot of the kids, if you're going to have an online account, maybe by the year 2019, that you're going to be able to buy these coloring books, to where that they say that if you're going to be joining them with an account by the next 2 years, and then they would have this to where you would be able to provide the information just for your own security purposes into a coloring book. And then if you want to go online and color with a few other kids, and I may say that even if it's going to be 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, especially on the weekends, if there's going to be any kids who are going to be online, and just thinking as to where that they have these characters right here, and I say between midnight, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, that you're going to be online, maybe on mobile, and then you'll have that information handy, and then just be talking to people, or maybe sharing maybe a few different sketches and drawings, or maybe talk about movies, creating a library for movies to watch later on, or a playlist. But anyway, talking about right here for passwords, that if anybody were to say that passwords can be very difficult, because sometimes that they are very hard to memorize, and even if you do memorize them, and then maybe the system that don't recognize your key entries, so that's why that anybody say that whenever you are it's like this character right here have with the radio, the headphones on, and just thinking as to where they have an account like a body right here, if you want to look at it like an office. But the type of body I'm talking about is to where it contains, it allows you to have access to a number of it's like a number of sources. Like if you want to call it like sources of access for whenever you do sign in, and then you had that ability to where you can send messages, you have access to the data, and from your last order, and then from your recent site visits. So if anybody were warranted, or whenever you have an account, and let's just say it directs you to a different site, you have these links, it takes you to a different site. So let's just say that if you were to rent the movie Cars 3 coming up later on in the fall, if you were to rent the movie Cars 3 on Disney.com, but let's just say that if you want to rent it from your Google Play account. So does that mean that the question goes by as to if you don't have an account, maybe you have to create one, do you want to look at that as to where you had to create a new body? And if anyway, I say, talks about right here is toward it whenever, like between rusty old cars, and you're like, say that, well, does that mean that you have to use the same old thing, or do you get new stuff? But really, that try to look at a password is something to where that, yeah, that for yeah, how, the type of lessons we can learn just by understanding about the use of the account of the service. Because if anybody wonders, is that whenever you have an account and trying to get used to how to sign in and how to sign out, because we use this on almost everything nowadays, like you say, that just to get proof of purchases, or maybe just to receive coupons or anything that that would say go by email and by account. But really, that if we're talking about maybe video games that kids will be getting on there, even on their game consoles, maybe a Nintendo Wii U, or maybe if it's anything like the Xbox One or PlayStation 4, that they would have an account on here. And so look at this as to where the type of body, and I say, the type of body to where that whenever you create an account, and then it's basically something to where it gives you the ability to where you can have access to a number of materials, such as to where they, okay, we'll check the latest status, or anything that you want to add, anything that you want to share, that you're able to connect with other people, around the world. And really, I'm like, how many of us are going to maybe say that's maybe one of the reasons why maybe a lot of people are joining, getting an account today, is to where they can talk to other people, nationwide, other than, you're not just talking to your neighbors. Yeah, you are not just talking to your neighbors whenever you create an account, whenever you have a body, whenever you create an account, you're watching these movies, you're basically connecting nationwide. And whenever you connect nationwide, you're going to be meeting people, you're going to be talking to people you don't know. So yeah, that's just a thing that it seems like it's all about explaining to where if technology is getting better day by day, or if it's all about is to where that racing for the championship is like to where that racing, that if you're trying to race to where who's going to come up to the finish line first, or if it's all about is to where understanding the use of the service, to where you have an accountant, so now you got a friend, you got a buddy of yours, and then maybe 4 other people decide to join. They decide to join within that 15-day period or something like that. But you have right here I talk for passwords. So if we were to be using these keywords right here and send the password, and if we can see this right here of send the password, that I do not recall this ever being used as for my password. But if anybody were to say that for what needs to be highlighted, really, what does need to be highlighted if I'm going to use this as a password? And by say that the rules could also change as to where instead of 8 characters long, that they say that make the password up to at least 15 characters long, just for security purposes and then for reset. But and then you have right here is for just pick one. So talk about right here, it's like with passwords though, is to where if you had no idea where to start. Okay, well, you're looking at these characters. Okay, well, I'm confused here. I don't know. I don't know which one. I don't know what this is. So I can just pick one. So if they say, for a password that you want to use, just pick up a letter, say from this column right here or from this column, just to be able to set a password if it's temporary, or if you're going to plan on keeping it for at least for the full month, or for the 90 days, and then go from there. But just to try to do all what we can just to make sure that your account is secure. So whenever you have access to it, you will be able to have access to it without being locked out. But if anybody were wondering, or if we would do any sorts of education studies about this, is to where that it's like there's this body to where that it's important for that body to recognize you as the user. For whenever you sign into the account, it's important for the calculator to know who's doing the homework. And then also this kind of reminds me too, is to where that whenever you start a class assignment, that some of the work that was already done for you, so all you gotta do is just fill in the missing remaining 2 letters and numbers right here. So it's like say that you can do the rest. But other than that, to talk about with passwords though, is that understanding about passwords, keeping them safe and secure, and knowing about how to manage them. But other than that, thanks for watching everyone, and have a great day.